Welcome to St Martin in the Fields. Welcome to Great Sacred Music. Special welcome to those joining us online or those joining us for the first time. The Feast of St Luke falls on the 18th of October each year. That's tomorrow for those who are counting. And St Luke, because he's referred to by St Paul in Colossians as the beloved physician, is always associated with the ministry of healing. And the ministry of healing is a controversial source of confusion in the church to a great deal. Just to give you three notions of what it might refer to, I guess the most primal notion is what you might call the prayer of resurrection. This person is at death's door. May they rise from their bed, walk free, and live forever. That's what we might call the prayer of resurrection. Doesn't always happen, as we know. In contrast to that, we might talk about the prayer of incarnation, which is be with this person in their suffering and walk with them and hold their hand through whatever lies ahead of them. But there's also a third prayer, which I guess is not quite so common, but I think is the most helpful prayer, which I would call the prayer of transfiguration. And the prayer of transfiguration says, in the midst of this suffering, make this a defining moment in this person and this community's life. May their relationships be truer and clearer to them than ever before, and may they look back on this period, should they live through it, as a time when they saw your face, the face of God, when they saw their true companions like never before. So I find that a much more helpful prayer to think of in terms of healing. Now, it's our tradition at Great Sacred Music to sing together at the beginning, and those of you who've picked up a sheet from the stool at the back of the aisle and are in the building will be able to turn to the second page and find a hymn that was written by John Greenleaf Whittier. If that name sounds familiar to you, it's because he also wrote the hymn, Dear Lord and Father of Mankind. Both of the hymns are actually taken from much longer poems that were abbreviated for turning into hymns. He was actually best known as an anti-slavery campaigner. He was a dedicated Quaker in the 19th century United States. He was very anti-enthusiastic religion, what we'd call charismatic demonstrations of faith today, and that's what Dear Lord and Father of Mankind is all about. And this hymn, in a more sober frame, is about the nature of love. But interestingly, coming from a Quaker background, doesn't mention Jesus. It isn't explicitly theological, but its theology is a belief in the eternal power, the immortal power of love in a very Quaker fashion. The tune Bishop Thorpe, named after the town in Yorkshire where the Archbishop of York's palace is to be found. The tune attributed to Jeremiah Clarke. If he sounds familiar, it's because the chances are that almost everybody in this church today and listening online has been to a wedding at which the trumpet voluntary was played, often on the way out. So that's probably why it sounds familiar. We remain seated. The voices, who usually are a little bit better than we are, stand and lead us as we sing Immortal Love Forever Full. Well, we're now going to hear a contemporary setting of the hymn Just As I Am, written by Charlotte Elliott, who was the granddaughter of Henry Venn, one of the Clapham sect around William Wilberforce. She was struck down with sickness aged 32, which dogged her for the last 50 years of her life. She wrote hundreds of hymns, published them in the quaintly named Invalids Hymn Book, not a fashionable title today, and the other cheerfully titled Hours of Sorrow Cheered and Comforted, another title I wouldn't recommend to you. She wrote Just As I Am as her brother Harry was raising funds to build a college in Brighton for daughters of poor clergy. Charlotte felt useless to help, but her hymn written that day proved far more influential than the bazaar. She recalled words spoken to her by a Swiss evangelist in 1822. He'd said, "Come to Jesus just as you are." William Wordsworth's daughter asked for the hymn to be read to her every morning as she approached death in Grasmere. This is a contemporary setting by Bob Chilcott, who's mastered the art of setting familiar words to new tunes. This, I think, is among his finest. Now we're going to hear two pieces together. The first, originally written by Robert Herrick, the 17th century English lyric priest and poet. He's an interesting character whose life charts the course of the 17th century. He was ejected from his parish during the Civil War, and he was restored at the Restoration in 1662. It's a haunting poem with a glorious and very memorable setting by Peter Herford. This passes the "will still be humming this evening when you're back at home" test. The second one we're going to hear is a setting of There Is a Balm in Gilead. A fascinating episode in the Old Testament is in Jeremiah chapter 8, where Jeremiah laments the destruction of Jerusalem and wonders if there might be some comfort in Gilead beyond the Jordan. But God then says, "Oh, that my head were a spring of water and my eyes a fountain of tears, so that I might weep day and night for the slain of my poor people." And this poignant scene in the Old Testament of God actually wanting to cry. And that revokes quite contrasting reactions. For those who want, pray prayers that start "Almighty God," who want God to be big and powerful and fix all the problems in the world, starting with Gaza, that's a rather miserable picture of God weeping. For those who see whose faith in God is largely about solidarity and believing that the creator of the universe and that which underwrites all of existence has profound compassion for our human tragedy, it's an extraordinarily moving passage in the Old Testament that affirms a very different picture of a God who is with us in our suffering. So two very poignant pieces contrasting in contemporary settings. We're now going to hear another contemporary piece. Thomas Hewitt Jones won the BBC Young Composer Competition in his teens and became well known for his Christmas piece, What Child Is This? His composition, Funny Song, was widely played internationally in 2022. I don't know if you remember 2022, but it was a time when we were all at home watching YouTube videos and doing practically nothing else. And it really went viral. Anyway, I Love Unfeigned is a poem, which is also a prayer on the theme of Good Friday, written by the British poet Geoffrey Dearmer, who died in 1996, and was the son of Percy Dearmer, compiler of the English hymnal and once rector of St Mary's Primrose Hill, just the other side of Regent's Park. Geoffrey Dearmer was deeply affected by his experience of the First World War, and this is a poem about Good Friday that portrays the experience of Jesus walking to the cross as an act of solidarity with us in our suffering, and with beautiful lines of poetry as vivid as they come. As in dark drops the pitting rain falls on a dusty street, so tears shall fall and fall again to wash thy wounded feet. He certainly knew what he was doing with a poetic line. But this is very much what I was saying at the beginning about those three kinds of prayers. This is very much the prayer of solidarity, the incarnational prayer, that however bad our sickness is, the knowledge that Christ has walked alongside us to the cross is a great consolation in the face of any suffering. Let's enjoy this piece now.
Shoulders, Lord, good
Okay, it's time for us all to sing again now, and we'll sing the hymn on the right-hand side, the inside page of your sheets, by John Bell, the prolific member of the Iona community, possibly one of the most influential hymn writers of our era. Why is his work so influential? I think for two reasons. First of all, because he employs traditional Scottish folk tunes that are well worth resurrecting and bringing into the contemporary genre, but also because he has an extraordinarily humane, theological, and very acute observatory quality about them that are very earthed in people's practical experience of faith and doubt. And this is a classic example of his work because it covers all the descriptions of healing that I described at the beginning, but does so in a way that's very tentative. We cannot measure, we don't know this, but we do know this. And it's incredibly balanced in terms of the tentativeness of faith and yet the underlying trust and conviction. So we remain seated, the voices will stand and lead us as we sing, "We Cannot Measure How You Heal." Well, we're coming towards the end of Great Sacred Music for this week. I hope you enjoyed yourself. If you have, there's an opportunity to make a donation, retiring collections you leave. If you brought with you large wads of notes, you can pop them in the basket. If you've just got a card, you can swipe that and indicate how, what amount you want to give and that kind of thing. Thank you for anything that you can give to keep this great tradition, now 11 years old, going. We have two sister programs now alongside this Thursday. Next Thursday, we've got Robert Bridges, the poet laureate during the First World War, a really fascinating character. We're looking at some of the settings of his poetry. But on Sunday afternoons, 3:15, we have choral classics. And now we also have on Monday lunchtimes at 1 o'clock a program, Let Every Corner Sing, about global music. So there is no escape from the different musical offerings at St. Martin's. We're going to finish with It's Me, O Lord, a setting by Michael Moran, who is a black South African choral composer born near the border with what used to be known as Lesotho and is now known as Eswatini. It's a setting of an African-American spiritual, It's Me, O Lord, and this, I guess, puts us in touch as we conclude with the primal notion of what it means to cry out for healing and help in the face of the panic, of the fear of being overcome by sickness and pain and eventually death. Thanks for joining us.